Will democracy survive in the next couple of years?
And essentially we are the same.
And there are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center in Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Firefly Credit Union, with locations throughout the Twin Cities, has proudly served Minnesotans since 1925. Firefly guides its members forward by delivering customized financial solutions to improve their lives in all aspects of banking. Firefly Credit Union, they light the way with life illuminated. EDINA Eye, Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years. Now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, EDINA Eye offers comprehensive services but dedicated specialists committed to excellence with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. Alan Miller here, and we have a return guest and one of our favorite people, also one of our benefactors, Dr. Charles Crutchfield, the well-known dermatologist, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Also, clinical professor of dermatology at the Mayo, and where he studied. Dr. Crutchfield comes from a very well-known Minnesotan family. His mother is a doctor, his father is a doctor, his brother is a well-known attorney, and his daughter is a hell of a photographer, among other things. So welcome, Charles.
Thanks.
Now, among your many credits, and we're going to talk about some of your civic endeavors and some of the sports team. Well, you represent just about all of the sports team. Aren't you the team doctor for dermatologists for most of them?
Yep, I'm the consulting dermatologist for the Twins and the Vikings and the Wild and the Timberwolves and the Lynx.
Other than that, that takes care of everything but the soccer team.
And I've seen a few of the soccer players, so we'll see what happens there.
Oh, okay.
They're a good crew.
You've got a lock on the market. And one of the things we want to talk about, and I should mention before we even get into that, you are the only dermatologist I know who has treated a shark. And
that's true.
And we're not talking about a lawyer, and we're not talking about people on the television program, but we're talking about the maritime animal,
yes,
the shark. So why don't you relate that story to us? Because not many doctors, dermatologists, or otherwise can tell us about treating a shark.
I got a call from the Minnesota Zoo a couple of years ago, and they asked me, did I perform Botox injections? And I said, yes. And they said, how long have you done it? And I said, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years. And they said, oh, great. Have you ever Botoxed a shark? And I had to think, and I said, no, I don't think I have. And so they had a shark with a condition called scoliosis, and it's a result of one set of muscles on side of the spine contracting, making the shark kind of a C-shaped or curved. And so if those muscles are contracted, if you can release them and relax them, the shark will straighten out and swim a lot straighter rather than in circles. And so I said, I haven't done it, but I'd be happy to try and help out the Minnesota Zoo. It's such a great organization, and any way I can, I'll help out. And they said, well, what size wetsuit do you wear? And I said, well, that part's not happening, but I will come down and if you can get the shark to the side, I'll help. And so they had a great crew that jumped in the water and they brought the shark over to the side. And I worked with the zoo's veterinarian and we placed the Botox injections, and actually did work quite well. It had been done one other time in the world down in Australia for a shark with a similar condition, and the veterinarian at the Minnesota Zoo had read about it and said, "Hey, let's try it." And she had actually contacted the vet that tried it in Australia and said it worked there. So that's how we did it, and the shark did well. Later on, the shark, got to a certain age where it passed away, but our treatment was successful.
Now, I understand the shark comes in every 6 months now for a follow-up. Is that true?
I wish it was a lovely shark, and I enjoyed meeting the shark.
And you get fan mail from them also. Now, one of the things, in addition to your dermatology practice, and we'll talk about that a little bit more because it's very interesting, especially in the pandemic. But one of the things you have been very active in is as a civic activist. And among other things, you have called upon the Twins, among other teams, to give us more diversity. Now, the Twins have this famous logo of Minnie and Paul, which is out in the center field with neon. And you suggested to the Twins that maybe we could make one of them a person of color. And they have it under advisement.
Mm-hmm.
Progress moves slowly. So let's see what Charles Crutchfield proposed. And there's our logo. And the fact of the matter is, as I said, progress moves slowly. Corporations move slowly. We can see it happening in our society. So that's just one thing you've been involved in of late. Do you want to comment about it?
Yeah,
You've also had some columns on it in several publications.
yeah, it picked up, got some really good press, and I tell you, not a day goes by that I don't see a couple patients that come and say, "Hey, I heard about that Twins logo thing." But I've been a Twins season ticket holder for over 20 years, and I'm a big fan of the Twins. It's a marvelous organization, and I think everybody from the owner down to the ball boy does a great job. In fact, I was kidding around with Dave St. Peter, but I said, honestly, if you looked up excellence in the dictionary, you'd see a picture of the Minnesota Twins, and they do a great job. It's a great organization, and it's more of a family affair. Like I said, I've been a consulting physician with them for many years. But I thought, looking at the sign, especially when you have two, if you have one person, well, you can only have one color. But if you have two people, and I love the design. It was done by, I think, of Mr. Borton back in the 1960s. But I thought you need to have players that look like the players on the field. And when I see the logo now, I don't see the players on the field, and I certainly don't see the fans in the stadium. And I think at this time in our country's development, it's nice to have something that is inclusive and welcoming and warming. And the Twins said they said they get it, and they said they're thinking about it. They're actually looking at an entire corporate logo redo that they might incorporate that into. So I know they're working at it, and I've got full confidence that they'll do the right thing on it. And they're just a great group of people, and I'm happy to be associated with them. And I'm glad they're listening to my
I'm sure that they will. And as a matter of fact, they're even working on redoing the mascot. We had the Twins mascot for many, many years. And yeah, of course, not with them at the moment, but then they don't have any fans at the moment either, except on television. And as we sit here, they are actually in first place today with only 3 games left before they start the playoffs. And they're also locked down as of yesterday. So that they're in a bubble as of yesterday. And it's interesting because
I think they've come too far to have to stop things now.
They're in a hotel, and there are 40 wives and children in there with them. They had that option.
Good for them.
And it's a very luxurious area. They also have sitting rooms, and they have a television and everything else. And the only thing that they're allowed to do, masked, is to go for a run or a walk. And other than that, to keep everybody safe from the pandemic. And as long as we're talking about the pandemic, how has that affected you? Because you have an incredible practice. You have so many patients, and you alone see and take care of and treat every patient. So I don't know how possibly you could do that. I'm sure there have been some online diagnoses or inspections, but basically your office is still a busy functioning place. How do you do it?
Well, the answer is simple. We have fantastic staff, and any organization that's successful, it's really a result of the cooperative efforts of the staff. And so we have a completely safe, along with code environment with all of our staff and patients. And we're doing telemedicine now. We talked about it for years. And I said, there's nothing like getting thrown in the deep end of the pool to learn how to swim quickly. And so after talking about telemedicine for almost 3 or 4 years, we find ourselves almost within a couple days doing it. And so we do all kinds of online platforms, be it Zoom and FaceTime and Google Duo, et cetera, et cetera. So we probably see, this was several months ago, we've done over 3,000 telemedicine visits online. And right now, about half of our patients are in person, about half are online. So it has really changed the way that we practice medicine, especially for patients that just need a refill or they're in a quick follow-up and things are well. No need to drive in and park and wait in the reception area 10 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes and then wait to see the physician. It's so convenient, and it's really the wave of the future. I don't think we'll ever go back. We'll always offer online visits. But there's some things you have to see in person. If you're going to do a procedure or a treatment, you have to do it in person. But it's really a nice mixture. And it's something that's really helped our practice. And we're seeing as many patients now as we did before the pandemic, and we're able to serve patients, especially patients that are vulnerable, in a very, very safe way. They can be treated from the comfort of their own home.
And talk about what are some of the most popular skin problems that you are treating at the present time. And I know it's kids with acne or even adults with acne, and I know it's also psoriasis and eczema. I certainly fall into that category, but tell us what some of them are.
Well, let me tell you, I remember when I was in medical school, my classmates would tease me when I said I was going to be a dermatologist. They said, "Oh, you're going to be Dr. Pimple Popper, and you're the wart chaser." And I tell you, in dermatology, there are over 4,000 different skin conditions. And I promise you, I had to learn about every single one in order to pass my boards. But common things are common. So we see lots of full body skin checks, changing moles, eczema, psoriasis, vitiligo, lichen planus, acne. So we still see lots of the common things. But I tell you, we do see some rare ones. And I had a personal record this week. I caught 4 melanoma skin cancers in one day. I've never seen 4 in one day. Sometimes I've done 1 or 2, but 4 in one day. So we're going to be following up on that. It's an interesting thing. When I was new in practice, one of my senior partners, this is back in 1998, so over 20 years ago, one of my senior partners who had also gone to medical school, he's a classmate of my father, he pulled me aside and he said, "Listen, don't ever call anyone and give them the diagnosis of melanoma on a Friday unless you're going to be able to do something about it over the weekend. If you can't do anything about it till Monday, call them and let them know Monday. There's no need to call them on a Friday and ruin their weekend when there's nothing you can do about it." And so that's good advice I've held my whole career. And I got the 4 pathology reports back this afternoon. So I'm not going to call anybody today since I can't treat it this weekend, but we'll hit it hard and get everything taken care of first thing Monday.
And since we're on Zoom and not live, they will get the call from you before they see this.
Yes, that's right.
Fortunately. And yeah. Now, I talked about your civic endeavors, but one of the things you have been so involved in the African-American community is participating in a book on Minnesota's Black community, really an inclusive volume. I'm going to hold it up here. It just came out a month or 2 ago with 2 other practitioners, well, not practitioners, but academics. And we're going to have them on the show in a few weeks. You're welcome to come back then, since the 3 of you are so responsible for it. But you wouldn't think of Minnesota necessarily with an African-American community. Maybe you would think of it a lot more after George Floyd was so horrendously murdered earlier this year, but you wouldn't. And of course, this book has been several years in preparation. So tell us what inspired that.
Well, it's the Scott family, and their father, Anthony Sr., was a remarkable man. He published a book like this back in the late 1950s, and it chronicled some of the African American professionals and also regular workers and businesses in the Twin Cities. And at the time, no one knew that he was chronicling the history of Black Minnesota, or at least Black Twin Cities. And so he came out with another edition in around 1970. And I remember I had several friends and family members. My parents were in it. My grandmother, who was the first African American school teacher in Minneapolis, she was in it. My uncle, who was one of the first junior executives of the Star and Tribune, he was in it. So it was an amazing book. And then they came out with another one in 1980. And it was an update, and there's still a lot of new people talked about different businesses in the Twin Cities and everything from Prudential to 3M to IBM. It was amazing. And years later, probably around 2010, I was going through my bookcase, and I found one of the books. I went, wow. And you open it up, and every page, there's somebody that you knew who really was a significant contributor to the development of the Black community in the Twin Cities, or business, or anything like that. So I thought, I wonder if he's still alive, or if they're going to ever do another one. And unfortunately, he had passed away. But I looked in the back, and one of the assistants putting the book together is a picture of a woman named Shonda, and she's probably about, I don't know, 20 years old. Said she was an assistant, so I Googled her, good old Google, and I found somebody with the same name who's a professor in Michigan. So I dropped an email and said, hey, do you happen to know who this is? She said, that's me. That's me and my dad. And I said, well, we'd love to help out or discuss putting another edition together. So we had a big meeting with their family and my family. And I remember we met at the Global Midtown Market, the old Sears building, Sears Roebuck building on Lake Street. We had dinner there, and that's what kicked it off. And 5 years later, we put it all together, and it came out. And, the thing is, it's not totally inclusive because you can't put everybody in it, but we did the best we could. And we decided we're going to have an online presence. So anybody that we missed, or if they want to update their bio, we'll have it online. And we're working on that right now so we can get everybody included. But it's amazing. It covers all the different fields, from actors to artists to beauticians to religious people to physicians to attorneys, business people. It has it all.
It gives you such a good perspective on the contributions that have been made to Minnesota and to the Black community and the community at large, and the people who were, for instance, if you pick up a magazine and you see this, and that tells you about the Crutchfield family a little bit. Well, you're not only was your grandmother the first Black teacher, but your mother was the first obstetrician. Your father was.
That would be, Mom was the first Black female to graduate from the University of Minnesota Medical School. And she was also the youngest woman ever to graduate from the University of Minnesota Medical School. Back at age 22, she was an attending physician at what we call now Fairview Hospital, but then it was called St. Mary's Hospital.
And in addition to that, your father has delivered and is still delivering on occasion. How many babies in this state?
He's delivered just short of 10,000 kids, and I can tell you, he's 81 now, and he'll help out if there's an emergency, but he's not doing any primary deliveries. But I tell you, there's not a day that goes by that I don't see a patient or several patients. He either delivered them or their kids or their neighbors or their cousins. So that has made quite a profound mark. I had a patient that came in to see me today, and she said, well, when I had a skin problem, I Googled dermatologist, and I saw your name. And your father was my obstetrician gynecologist and delivered 3 of my kids and I've known him for years. And he was so kind to me. I figured I'd give you a shot because the acorn probably doesn't fall far from the tree. So I can't tell you how many patients have seen me just because my parents were such good physicians to them, and they gave me a shot. So they've made it really easy for me to practice medicine in the Twin Cities.
Now, one of the things you don't do is offer dental treatments. And we have publicity about that also.
No,
what's the story there?
I had a patient and she came in and she was horrified because she went to the dentist and they were trying to sell her on Botox. And then she asked the dentist, "Will you inject Botox?" And he said, "No, the dental hygienist does." And she said, "Listen, if I'm going to have a neurotoxin injected into my face, I would like to at least have a physician do it and somebody who knows the physiology and everything. I don't want a hygienist giving me Botox." So as kind of a satire, we came out things saying that we won't offer dental treatments, and we hopefully the dentist won't offer medical aesthetic treatments. And my favorite line is, I said, "Effective immediately. We will not do this." So
And
it was just a little friendly jab at our colleagues saying, "Hey, stay in your lane, guys."
it's interesting because we know now that you don't do dental treatments and you do treat sharks. So
Right. Hey, I'll tell you a funny story about that. The week after I treated the shark for the first time in 20 years, I had a patient. She came in and she had scoliosis, and she said, "Do you ever treat scoliosis with Botox?" And I said, "Only on sharks." So, true story.
and she was a lady lawyer, so she wasn't surprised.
Right.
Now, one of the things we're talking about now, some of your civic endeavors, and they're all over the place, is the Crutchfield Foundation. What does the Crutchfield Foundation do? It's certainly a charitable organization, and you founded it. What does it do?
Well, right now we do several things, but our focus is on supporting youth. And so we offer annual scholarships to students at the High School for Recording Arts, which is a charter school that's got about a 25-year history in St. Paul that does miraculous things for youth at risk. And I believe you had David Ellis, their chancellor, on. But it's wonderful. They'll have kids that have dropped out of school, and they bring them back into school through music and the music curriculum. But they'll say things like, "Well, if you're going to write a song, you got to develop the lyrics. And if you want nice lyrics, well, you better take some English. And then if you're going to write a business proposal, get your song published with some numbers, you're going to need some math." And it's beautiful. They bring in all the subjects in school. And these are kids that were given up on. And they have a graduation rate of like 75% on these kids that have all dropped out of school. So we support them. I also support the University of Minnesota Medical School, and we give scholarships to the medical students there. We also have a series of lectures, national lectures. It's the first one on treating skin of color, and it's been nationally recognized. We've been doing that for almost 10 years now. We fly in experts from all over the world to educate the residents and other physicians at the University of Minnesota on specializing in treating skin of color. We
Because
also
it is so different. The requirements are so different, obviously.
and the recognition is different.
And
Yeah.
the color.
Yeah, the recognition is complete. Things in Caucasian skin that look pink and red, in brown skin look gray and violaceous and copper, and it really will throw you off if you're basing it on that. A lot of times you are. So that's a program that we sponsored with the University of Minnesota and Dr. Hordinsky, the chairman of the university, for almost 10 years now, and it's going strong, and it's gotten rave reviews, and we've got some great national speakers. We also, as an aside, my first cousin twice removed, my grandfather's first cousin, was a Negro League baseball player at the time, and I call them Negro League Major League Baseball players because at the time they just wouldn't let them in the major leagues. But it's very fascinating. Most of the Negro League players knew the other white American Major League players, and they had different games against each other all the time, and it was wonderful. And so we support that, and we also provide scholarships for students who write essays on some of the great players in the Negro Major Leagues who would normally be forgotten. We also are going to have a support a display at the Negro League Baseball Museum in Kansas City coming up. So the foundation does everything from scholarships to support forgotten Black heroes.
And you've also done a lot of work in suicide prevention. How did you get involved in that?
Well, that's something that's near and dear to my heart. We had a family member who took his life, and so we write about that. We offer different access and information on suicide prevention. And so that's something very serious. We get serious about it real fast. And it's something very important.
I mean, we could just go on and on with your involvements in all of these endeavors. We had an incident in Kentucky 2 days ago in which a grand jury came back really ignoring the murder of Breonna Taylor. And yeah, they indicted one police officer for shooting a bullet into a neighbor's apartment, sort of a slap on the wrist. The other two walked off free. Here's a woman asleep at home in her own bed, and the police burst in. Her boyfriend fired his licensed gun, naturally, as anybody would, and she was hit, I think, 8 times or 5 times and was murdered. The police walked free. Now, I know that this is something that's really dear to you. So what do we do about this ongoing problem of violence? And it's only a few of the police. It's not all of them. It's a couple of bad actors, like we get bad actors in everything else. What can we do?
I think there are several things. And the case in Kentucky is interesting because I saw one of the biggest problems was they did not give her medical attention. They let her sit there and die for 15 minutes. The nice thing that just came out this morning is the attorney for the family has now asked the attorney of Kentucky for all of the records from the grand jury hearing. And I would love to see that. I think that'll better explain what the reasoning was. But the one thing and you're right, and I support the police. I have friends that are police officers. My friend Roger New is the chief of police of Eagan, and he's African American. But they're just like
on the show many times, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like any profession, there are some bad apples, but the problem is you need to have the people in there say, we're not going to back the bad apples anymore. And if you get rid of the bad apples, you have to have a system where they can't get reinstated after that. So there are a lot of things. And, I know that the show is running short, but I think the other thing that's very, very important is people like to talk about change, but what can we do? What actions can we take to actually affect change as opposed to just talking about it? And I think it's a two-way street. I think also if opportunities present themselves, the people who are getting the opportunities need to be ready to take advantage of them. And I think that's really important too.
And we, of course, had our own trauma right here with George Floyd back in May. And amazingly, that seemed to resonate around the world, different from anything that I have ever seen. It hasn't stopped these killings, but it certainly has raised awareness and created problems. And Black Lives Matter, which sprang out of that, had been working previously. Education, I guess, is the answer.
It's education and also financial disparities. Those two things are very, very important. And I'd love to see this make sure that there are real changes that provide opportunities so all of us, all human beings, can move forward together.
And we have to point out that protests are a valuable thing under our Constitution and under the First Amendment. But there is a big difference between protests and violence. Violence has no place in these protests, and often it's the result of anarchists from out of the area moving in to do nothing more than to create havoc and to steal. We just have to get that out of our society.
I agree with you 100%.
We've been talking, always fascinating, with Dr. Charles Crutchfield III. And we showed a picture of the second. And is one of your sons the fourth?
Yes, my son, Charles Crutchfield IV. He's a junior at St. Thomas Academy High School.
And always an education and a fascination to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing some of your, I know, very busy day with us. And stay safe, stay well.
I've enjoyed being here. Thank you.